CBS News has learned that the Boston Coast Guard is operating a search and rescue mission for a missing submarine.
The sub was exploring the wreckage of the Titanic. The sub went missing in the Atlantic Ocean near Canada. The Titanic sunk off the southeast coast of Newfoundland, Canada, after hitting an iceberg in 1912. The ship's wreck site wasn't found until 1985. It now sits more than 12,000 feet below the ocean's surface. More than 2,200 passengers and crew were aboard the vessel at the time of the disaster. At least 1,500 of those people were killed when the ship sank.
CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tayeb joins us now. Imtiaz, what more do we know about this missing submarine?
Elaine, Nikki, good to be with you. Well, this is a really fast-moving story. In fact, we've only received a statement from the company behind this tour really in the last hour or so, and I can read it out to you, and it is very short. There's only 4 bullet points here. It simply says, we're exploring, mobilizing all options to bring our crew back safely. Our entire focus is on the crew members and the submersibles and their families, and we're deeply thankful for the extensive assistance we've received from government agencies and deep-sea companies in our efforts to reestablish contact with the submersible. There's a bit more detail here as well, not a huge amount, really focusing on the crew members on board. But when they say submersibles, it's not a sub in what you might think it is. It's a very small vessel. In fact, CBS Sunday Morning about a year ago traveled on that very vessel and saw the Titanic on it, and the images were pretty extraordinary. You see this vessel, it's not big, and only a few people could go on board, and they basically were drilled into it. The only way to get out is if you're out of the water and drilled back out of it. And so they describe it as a one-of-a-kind carbon fiber vessel. This company has been around since 2009, but it's only, again, as we've been saying in the last year, that it's been offering tours to tourists to the tune of around $250,000 for this 8-day trip. But this is the first time that we're hearing of anything like this, which is losing contact with one of their vessels. Now, I suppose the one good thing at this stage, without having found this submersible, is the fact that the area with which it has gone missing is well known and well tracked. And as we've been hearing, CBS News can confirm that the Boston Coast Guard has been brought in. It is part of the search, and it is assisting in trying to find this submersible. Guys.
Imtiaz, it's really frightening, the thought of being stuck down there. That was a very limited statement, so I'm not sure if we have any more details about how many people were on board the vessel. Any idea? There's mention of a crew. Any idea if any of the tourists that you reference sometimes go down on these might be on there?
Yeah, so what I can tell you is that there are 3 specific submarines that this company operates. All of them can have the same capacity, which is 1 pilot and 4 crew members, as they describe it. And so we can understand that there's at least 5 people on board this submersible. And again, the company describes it as very sophisticated. And yet when, the CBS crew were there a year ago, they were saying, well, look, some of these pieces you just kind of like put together yourself, whether it was from the lighting kit or whatnot. However, the company makes it very clear that they used only the highest level of technology and were basically being guided by some of the top scientists in the world to create this submersible vessel. And again, it's a pretty expensive journey for those who want to go. We do understand that, and we cannot confirm this for sure, but I will share this information. Captain Hamish Harding, who's a British adventurer, posted on Instagram saying that he was proud to announce that he joined the Ocean expedition for their Titanic mission, but he also said in his post that due to the worst winter in Newfoundland in 40 years, the mission was likely to be the first and only manned mission to the Titanic in 2023. Now, we cannot confirm for sure that he was on that specific submarine. Although, if you look at that image on Instagram that he posted, he was very clearly on the vessel that would lead to that. So, not a lot of details, Guy, but as you rightly put out there, Nikki, a very scary situation for all involved.
Yes, we hope that the submarine is found soon, and hopefully, perhaps everyone is okay. Imtiaz, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rear Admiral John Mauger. I'm the commander of the 1st Coast Guard District here in Boston, Massachusetts. And in this case, I am the lead for the Coast Guard search and rescue operations for the overdue submersible out near the wreck of the Titanic. Yesterday afternoon, we were notified by the operator of the submersible vessel that it was overdue, and it had 5 persons on board the submersible. So we're working very closely at this point to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to locate the submersible and rescue those on board. Our thoughts are with the crew members and the families of those on board the submersible at this time, and we are doing everything that we can do to make sure that we can locate and rescue those on board. So after receiving the call, we reached out to the vessel Polar Prince and began a surface search looking for the submersible. At the same time, we launched a C-130 aircraft to conduct an aerial search, both visual and radar, of the scene. We've subsequently coordinated with the Canadian Coast Guard and Canadian Armed Forces to deploy additional assets to the scene. The Canadians have had a C-130 aircraft searching as well, in addition to also having a P-8 submarine search aircraft deploy as well, and put sonar buoys in the water in attempt to listen. The location of the search is approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod, in a water depth of roughly 13,000 feet. It is a remote area, and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area, but we are deploying all available assets to make sure that we can locate the craft and rescue the people on board. Going into this evening, we will continue to fly aircraft and move additional vessels into the area. In this remote part of our search and rescue responsibility, oftentimes we rely on commercial operators to be the first vessels on scene. And so we've been in touch with additional commercial vessels that are operating in the area, as well as initiating the movement of additional Canadian Coast Guard assets and U.S. Coast Guard surface asset into the area over the course of the next couple of days. Adding to the complexity of this case is the fact that this was a submersible vessel, and so we need to make sure that we're looking both on the surface for the vessel if it had surfaced back to the water, but it somehow lost communications with the vessel, and that's what the aircraft and the surface search vessel is allowing us to do right now. But we're also having to search in the water column, and we're doing that right now with the use of sonar buoys and sonar on the ship that's out there to listen for any sounds that we can detect in the water column. Over the course of the next couple days, we anticipate adding additional capability to conduct additional search in the water as those commercial assets arrive on scene. Again, our thoughts are with the families and the crew members on board this submersible, and we're working very closely with all U.S. and international partners to provide any capability that we can provide to search for the overdue vessel and rescue the crew members on board.
But we begin our report with a search for a submersible missing in the northern Atlantic. 5 people were on board the vessel as it made its way to the depths of the ocean to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. Now, as officials cycle through strategies of rescue, they know success has a narrow window. The submersible left on the excursion with a 96-hour supply of oxygen on Sunday, meaning oxygen could completely run out by Thursday. CBS News correspondent Roxana Saberi has more on the search of efforts.
Search crews are frantically scouring an area larger than the state of Connecticut. But so far, there's no sign of the missing vessel, the Titan, and its 5 passengers.
What are the biggest challenges you're facing?
You're dealing with a surface search and a subsurface search, and frankly, that makes it an incredibly complex operation.
But time is dwindling fast because they're running out of oxygen.
We know at this point we're approximately about 41 hours.
There's no other trip like this.
For the past 2 years, the U.S.-based company OceanGate Expeditions has used the submersible to take tourists to the famous Titanic shipwreck, charging $250,000 per person. At nearly 2.5 miles below the ocean surface, the Titanic is located at roughly twice the depth of the Grand Canyon. Finding the Titan won't be easy at those depths, even if it's floating on the surface. Rescuers are now gaming out different scenarios in the event they find it. Among the 5 missing passengers, Hamish Harding, a British billionaire who flew into space on Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket last year. Pakistani-British businessman Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son Suleiman. And Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a former diver with the French Navy and a seasoned Titanic researcher. OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush is also on the vessel.
We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Last year, OceanGate hosted CBS Sunday Morning correspondent David Pogue on an expedition to the Titanic. But just minutes into his dive, something went wrong.
So apparently those floats there came off the platform. So we're scrubbing?
Yeah, I think that's the consensus up here.
The weight of the situation is bearing down on friends and family. Jannica Mikkelsen spoke with her friend Hamish Harding the day before he left.
It's not good. It really isn't good. It will be a miracle if the crew returns alive.
And Roxana Saberi joins me now. Roxana, we saw you speaking with Coast Guard officials. Who else is helping with this rescue effort?
Well, John, the effort is an international one. There are teams from Canada, France, and the U.S. involved so far. From the U.S., the Navy and the Coast Guard, as you mentioned, they're working together. And today I spoke with 2 members of New York's Air National Guard. They're helping search for the Titan on the surface of the water using technology like radar. But they've said they've already had several challenges yesterday. The weather was not good. Visibility was very poor. There was a lot of rain and fog, and though they had night goggles, they said they had no illumination to help them out at night. They were hoping for better conditions today. And also, Major Patrick Harding told me he's never searched for a submersible before. On previous missions, they've searched for things like sailboats and small fishing boats, so about the same size as the Titan, but he expects less of the submersible would appear on the surface of the water, maybe even a few inches only, so it would be a lot harder to spot. John? And
Roxana, this involves a submersible. How's that different from a submarine?
Yeah, they are unlike submarines, which leave and return under their own power. Submersibles require a ship to set them off and then to recover them. We know OceanGate had hired the Polar Prince to do just that with the Titan. The Titan was supposed to make multiple dives on each expedition, and the company has described it as, quote, the largest of any deep diving submersible. It reported that 28 people visited the Titanic wreck site last year. John?
Roxana Saberi in Boston. Thank you.
There's a glimmer of hope in the search for a sub that disappeared on its way to the wreck of the Titanic. Rescue teams detected underwater noises in the search zone, but time is running out with less than 24 hours of oxygen reportedly left on board. Roxana Saberi is following the latest from Boston. Roxana, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. The U.S. Coast Guard confirms that a Canadian aircraft detected underwater noises in the search area. Crews then refocused their search to try to pinpoint where those noises were coming from. They have not been able to find anything so far, but their search continues. To put in perspective just how massive this search area is, it is larger than the state of Connecticut and roughly twice as deep as the Grand Canyon.
We will do everything in our power to effect a rescue.
With just hours of oxygen left, rescuers say they're doing everything they can to find the missing submersible.
What are the biggest challenges you're facing?
You're dealing with a surface search and a subsurface search, and frankly, that makes it an incredibly complex operation.
U.S.-based OceanGate Expeditions operated the voyage, which takes tourists to the famous Titanic shipwreck in the North Atlantic Ocean, nearly 2.5 miles underwater. Rescuers say the vessel could be there on the ocean floor or on the surface, but even if it's floating, spotting the Titan won't be easy.
We're not expecting to see a large portion of it showing above the surface of the water, maybe a couple inches, a couple feet of it at the most.
Do you know if the people aboard the vessel have any way of communicating?
We haven't received any indication that they have any sort of communication device for us to be listening to.
OceanGate CEO and founder Stockton Rush is among those on board.
We run the whole thing with this game controller.
In an interview with CBS Sunday Morning last year, Rush defended the safety of the submersible.
The pressure vessel is not MacGyver at all, because that's where we work with Boeing and NASA and the University of Washington. Everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe.
According to 2018 court filings, a former OceanGate employee said he was fired after voicing concerns about the Titan, saying it posed potential danger to passengers as it reached extreme depths. But in court documents filed this April, OceanGate said the vessel was capable of diving the depth to the Titanic site with a comfortable safety margin.
On every dive we took, they lost communication. You know going in how very dangerous this is.
Mike Reese traveled on the Titan almost a year ago to see the Titanic wreckage.
No one walks into this surprised. Before you even get on, you sign this long waiver that mentions possible death 3 times on the first page. So you know what you're getting into.
As for those underwater noises that were detected, the U.S. Coast Guard says data from the Canadian aircraft has been shared with U.S. Navy experts for more analysis and will be used in the search efforts. Anne-Marie?
Well, hopefully it is a good sign. I know, the ocean makes a lot of noises, but hopefully this is the one that they need. What is the latest on the search operation? And presumably at some point, if all goes well, they will be pivoting to a rescue operation. Are they prepared for that?
Well, the U.S. Coast Guard just tweeted that 3 vessels have arrived on the scene this morning, and one of them has scanning sonar capabilities to help with the search. And also this morning, Rear Admiral John Mauger of the U.S. Coast Guard told CBS News that an aircraft with sonar buoys detected noise in the water yesterday, but they don't know the source of that noise. He said there are a lot of metal objects at the Titanic site, which could be the source, and that the noise is, quote, a target to look at. Mauger also said crews will keep searching as long as there's an opportunity for survival. As for how prepared they are for a possible rescue, they say they're looking into various options, but if the submersible is found on the floor of the ocean, the options are quite limited. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, indeed, because we don't know why the submersible isn't moving, and based on that, we'll determine how complicated the rescue effort could be. Roxana, thank you very much.
And I'll provide an update on our ongoing search efforts for the Titan submarine. Behind me, or beside me, I should say, you'll see several subject matter experts from the Unified Command who introduce themselves momentarily. These individuals represent only a small fraction of the many dedicated professionals working around the clock on this complex response effort. We understand this is an extremely difficult time for the families of the missing crew members aboard the Titan, and our thoughts go out to them and the crew. The Unified Command team is working tirelessly to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible in response to this complex operation. And we remain in close contact with the family members and the crew to ensure they are fully aware of our current and future search efforts. Additionally, we have been in close contact with the British and French Consulates General to ensure that they are fully appraised of our efforts, and we are ensuring that their concerns are being addressed. We're incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that has been provided, including an expert submariner from the Royal Navy, who's here with us serving aboard as a critical member of our team. Additionally, a team of highly trained French ROV operators departed St. John's last night are en route to aid the search. Moreover, our Canadian partners have been providing critical leadership and significant response capabilities since the beginning of our efforts. Again, this is an incredibly complex search operation requiring both surface and subsurface elements, and our unified approach is critical. The location of the search, 900 miles east of Cape Cod and 400 miles southeast of St. John's, makes it exceptionally difficult to mobilize large amounts of equipment quickly. In spite of those challenges, we've been able to provide continuous air and surface search assets, as well as additional ROV capability to search below the surface. We currently have 5 surface assets searching for the Titan, and we expect 10 total surface assets to search in the next 24 to 48 hours. There are 2 ROVs actively searching, and several more are en route and will arrive by tomorrow morning. We've received incredible support with aviation assets from our Coast Guard Air Station in Elizabeth City, the Air National Guard, and Canadian Armed Forces. Today there are 2 back-to-back P3 flights. One is ongoing now as I speak, totaling 14 hours of continuous on-scene coverage, and 2 C-130 flights, also one ongoing now, throughout the day and into the evening. Yesterday, a Canadian P3 detected underwater noises in the search area. As a result, ROV operations were relocated in an attempt to explore the origin of the noises. Although the ROV searches have yielded negative results, they continue. Additionally, the data from the P3 aircraft has been shared with our U.S. Navy experts for further analysis, which will be considered in future search plans. The surface search is now approximately 2 times the size of Connecticut, and the subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, exponentially expanding the size of the search area. We also have to factor in the ever-changing weather conditions, currents, and sea states that expand the search area every hour. There's an enormous complexity associated with this case due to the location being so far offshore, and the coordination between multiple agencies and nations. We greatly appreciate the outpouring of support and offers to provide additional equipment. The Unified Command continues to prioritize assets and resources in order to provide the best capability in the most timely manner. This includes weighing multiple factors to identify the most effective resources available to the response operation, with careful consideration to timeliness of equipment arriving on scene, usefulness and ability to deliver assets to the search area. Over the past 48 hours, we have, through incredible unity of effort, mobilized and implemented a tremendous amount of expertise and response capability. In addition to the ships and aircraft previously mentioned, we've dispatched 2 subject matter experts from U.S. Navy NAVSEA Subsalv, who will serve as search coordinators on scene for underwater search operations. So I've been stressing unity of effort a lot in this statement, and that's because it is absolutely critical to this complex operation. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the crew of the Titan and their loved ones. We will continue to work as hard and as quickly as possible in an effort to locate them. I will take a few questions, but before I do that, I do want I'm going to have each of the members of the team here just introduce themselves, and then I'll go ahead and take some questions.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Hankins. I'm the Director for Salvage Operations with the U.S. Navy's Supervisor of Salvage.
Hello, I'm Carl Hartsfield from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Commander Rich Cantharia. I'm an exchange officer currently serving on the staff of Commander Submarines Atlantic at Norfolk, Virginia.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Commander Christy Butler, working closely with Captain Frederick from RCC Boston, Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator. Thank you.
Captain, what more can you tell us about the noises that were heard? Can you give us any more detail? And just to follow up, from what you've gathered so far, based on those noises, should that give the families and the others who care for these people, should that give them some reason to hope?
So a couple things. One, I think when you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do. With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are, to be frank with you. The P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. And we hope that when we're able to get additional ROVs, which will be there in the morning, the intent will be to continue to search in those areas where the noises were detected, and if they're continuing to be detected, and then put additional ROVs down in the last known position where the search was originally taking place.
Yeah, but it was true that these noises were coming in regular 30-minute intervals as reported?
I hadn't heard 30-minute intervals. So here's what I can tell you. I am not a trained ear for underwater aquatics. That's why we have a team of experts that are analyzing that data. That data was sent immediately to the Navy last night, and it was analyzed overnight. They're still looking at it, but I can tell you that it's inconclusive. But again, I think the important piece is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected.
Captain, you didn't talk about a timeline. Can you talk about what timeline you're working on in conjunction with the teams that are there?
It's a timeline in what respect?
How much oxygen they have left on?
Oh, okay. Well, in terms of, so we talked about the oxygen number. I think you're all tracking the oxygen number. I think there's an important point with that, though. The oxygen, that's just one piece of data, right? There are a lot of pieces of data that we need to consider, and we're continuously looking at that, and we'll continuously do that throughout the search. But that's not the only thing that's important, right? And right now our efforts are solely focused on the search. That certainly is a dialogue that's happening, but we're focused on searching at this point.
And this is a recovery or a rescue at this point?
Oh, this is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
How down are those ROVs, and can you confirm that some sort of rectangular object has been spotted? There was some sort of report about that, I don't know.
So a couple things. So the ROVs, each ROV brings different capability. The ROVs that are diving today, what's the depth on the
4,000 meters.
4,000 meters. And some additional ROVs that'll be arriving tomorrow have additional depth capability. With respect to an object, so yesterday one of the aircraft did see an object. I will tell you this: in search and rescue missions, when aircraft are flying continuously, there is stuff out in the ocean that is floating. We went back, we looked at it. It wasn't. We didn't determine it to be debris. We don't think it correlates with the case, and it is not uncommon at all during an active search to see things, and then we go and look at them. So.
Just Clark from BBC News. When were these noises first heard? How long did they persist for? And if I could also ask, do you have any information in terms of food and water that men might have on board the Sun?
Yeah. So. So several P3 flights have heard noises as yesterday, and we put assets there. We relocated assets immediately. With respect to food and water, it's my understanding there are some limited rations. I can't tell you exactly how much they have aboard, but they do have some limited rations aboard the vessel.
Speaking to the families, how much hope can you give them after hearing those noises?
Listen, I think you need to be careful. We need to have hope, right? But I can't tell you what the noises are. But what I can tell you is, and I think this is the most important point, we're searching where the noises are, and that's all we can do at this point.
Captain, is that your best clue right now about the status of the submersible and those noises? And are the noises continuing now? Are they stopped or are they continuing?
So I just wanted to. So it was my understanding that the P3 had heard some noises today as well. But so I do want to take just an opportunity to invite Carl to the podium just to talk a little bit about. He has a little bit more expertise in underwater acoustics, and maybe just to speak to that in general, because again, there are noises below the surface of the ocean, and so I'll just turn it to Carl.
Carl, can you spell your name? Yes, Carl Hartsfield. So again, Carl Hartsfield from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So the ocean is a very complex place. Obviously, human sounds, nature sounds, and it's very difficult to discern what the source of those noises are at times. But I can tell you that this team has multiple sensors. They're in the area. They're sending data back expeditiously to the best in the world people to analyze that data, and then they're feeding the results of that analysis back to the unified team, and they're making decisions. So Woods Hole is here in an advisory role, but by our expertise, what I see is a very tight operational loop that's making decisions based on data, and nothing is ruled out.
Are the noises continuing? He said he heard the noises this morning. Are they still continuing on a regular basis now?
There have been multiple reports of noises, and every one of those noises is being analyzed, tracked, looked for patterns, and reported upon.
Can you describe what the noise sounds like that they're hearing?
Well, you know, the noises, again, very complex in the ocean. You have to be an acoustic analysis, and you have to have context. They're trying to put all the pieces together. The noises have been described as banging noises, but again, they have to put the whole picture together in context, and they have to eliminate potential man-made sources other than the Titan.
Is it possible that a ship in the ocean, is it possible a ship in the ocean or even some mammals out there could mimic that kind of sound?
So I can tell you from my experience with acoustics that there are sounds by biologics that sound man-made to the untrained ear, but I can assure you that the people listening to these tapes are trained. There are a lot of vessels in the area, and they each make noise, right? So all of that has to be eliminated, and it's analysis over time. Plus, as the captain said, the team is searching in the right area. So if you continue to do the analysis, look for different patterns, and search in the right area, you're doing the best you possibly can do with the best people on the case.
Captain, apparently there was a deep ocean salvage system, flyway, that was sent there to the location. Can you tell if it's on site yet, and how it operates, and how long it would take to rescue it with that tape?
Which system is he speaking about? You know the system? What's the system that you're talking about?
It's called the Flyway Deep Ocean Salvage System.
That's just a hydraulic. Yeah, that's a crane.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. So that's a piece of equipment. It's a crane piece of equipment. There are a lot of pieces of equipment flowing in through St. John's right now. One thing I did want to mention, I think it's important. Some of the ROV capability that's arriving soon is really great, incredible capability. One thing I want to point out is that French team that's coming in to serve aboard with their equipment aboard a French ship. They bring some state-of-the-art equipment, and so once they get on, we're going to have more assets down to look, and we'll continue to put them where we think the best location is.
Considering how many days passed, are you still optimistic that you're gonna find them both?
So how many days? Did you ask how many days?
Considering how many days passed?
Well, so we have to remain optimistic and hopeful when you're in a search and rescue case. So we're right in the middle of the search and rescue case. So I don't want to get into a discussion about when that would end with respect to this case. What I will tell you, though, I'm happy to explain to you kind of how that process were to work. The Coast Guard prosecutes search and rescue cases on a daily basis, and sometimes we don't find what we're looking for, and you have to carefully consider all of the factors, and there are a lot of factors you consider. And then after you consider all of those factors, sometimes you're in a position where you have to make a tough decision. We're not there yet, but if we continue to search, potentially we could be at that point. But again, we're not there yet, and that's a discussion that we will have with the family long before I'm going to discuss that here publicly.
What would the rescue operation look like?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
What's the likelihood that they can survive beyond tomorrow morning when the oxygen is expected to run out?
Yeah, so I can't put a number on the I'm not going to put a percent. I don't have a percentage number. What I would tell you is that is just one data point, and there are more data points than that we have to look at. So right now we continue to search, and we'll have that later.
Captain, if I could, who heard the noises, and how often do they hear the noises? Can you just give us any more specifics? Did
Sure.
Uh,
they hear them this morning? Were they at 30-minute intervals? Just give us some more specifics.
So the report. So
And who described them as banging? Sorry, because this gentleman said banging.
the noises were heard by a Canadian P3, and that was this morning and some yesterday. I don't know specifically or they're 30-minute intervals, but again, I really think the important point to that is we're in the air, we're searching there. We moved assets and we're searching there, and we'll continue to do so.
Could you just
operation look like?
Go ahead.
and I don't know if you mentioned this yet, but is the vessel itself, what's the likelihood that it's actually still operable at this hour, the vessel itself?
Yeah, I don't. Listen, whether it's operable or whether it's sitting on the ocean floor, whether it's in the sea column, or whether it's in the surface, it's all speculation, and we're just not in the business of speculation. We're in the business of searching, and we're putting everything we can with the data we have to search for the vessel. And I think we'll take one more question. Go ahead, sir.
Just want to get a bit more about the role of the Navy and the assistance being provided, as well as the equipment that is being deployed.
Yeah, so we asked for some additional subsurface support, and we got that through the Navy, through a liaison officer. He's just one of many team members, and we're greatly appreciative of the British government and all the support they've given us.
Can we expect a daily update now on this?
So I think the plan will be to do a daily like this. I'm not going to lock into that right now, but we'll keep you informed, and certainly if there's any major developments, we'll let you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We've been watching the Coast Guard update the search for the missing submersible in the Atlantic Ocean. Officials say this has been a complex mission, but they are using every tool at their disposal. They are adamant this is still a rescue mission and said we need to have hope. They also thanked U.S. and Canadian officials for cooperation with the mission and expressed their thoughts to the families of those on board. Captain Frederick, who did most of the talking there, said they do not know what the noises heard yesterday and again today are, but they are searching in the area where the sounds were detected. He also said 5 service assets, ROVs, are already searching for the Titan, and they expect several more, up to 5 additional, to reach the area by tomorrow morning. Chris Roman is an associate professor of oceanography at the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography. Chris, thanks for sticking around to talk to us. I just want to ask you about the noises. I think a lot of people have interest in it. You're an expert. How confident are you that those sounds could potentially be coming from the submersible?
It is possible. So sound travels very efficiently underwater. If people were intentionally making noises within the sub, it's very likely they could be detected with a sonobuoy, and then that position can be translated into a new search area. I think that's what the captain said there in that brief. So that is encouraging. He also mentioned that there's a lot of other things in the ocean that make noises, and so they have people trying to sort this out right now. The ocean is a very complicated acoustic environment, and so it's encouraging that for what they did here, they were able to locate it and move assets there. I mean, that's the most important thing, I think, at this point.
Yes, indeed. What is the general topography in that section of the ocean, and how is that playing into the rescue response?
Well, there's 2 things there. So the aerial search, they said, you often see other stuff in the ocean, right? And so it's you more often than not run into things you're not looking for than things you are looking for on the surface. The bottom, too, you're looking near a shipwreck. So if these ROVs are searching with acoustics or vision, so using camera systems, if they're anywhere near the wreck, there's other stuff on the bottom associated with that wreck. And so that's going to, give you a sort of a data processing problem now. You have to be able to sort out things that are potential targets from things that you're interested in. So that's a complicated thing to do. The seafloor around the wreck otherwise is not that interesting. It's a pretty flat, relatively boring place, which is good. But again, there are other things on the bottom near there associated with the Titanic itself.
Chris, how does the ocean's depth, pressure, and lack of light impact both the rescue effort and those on board?
Well, so light, doesn't exist more than a couple hundred meters in the ocean. So every vehicle down there is carrying its own lights with it. That is a constraint when you're looking for things visually with cameras, because the image you're going to get at any given time is not going to be any bigger than your bedroom. And so now you're really sort of looking around with a flashlight, right? It's like searching a football field with a pen light. It's just not that efficient, right? So these ROVs are likely, we call mowing the lawn, doing sort of organized survey patterns so they don't miss things. That's a major issue. Temperature is a major issue for human survivability inside a submarine. It's only about 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit down there. So, and water is very good at pulling heat out of things. So staying warm inside that sub is definitely an issue. That's the environment. And then pressure, the captain also alluded to bringing assets there. This is very deep. There are not a lot of assets in the world that operate at this depth. And so he's limited in the resources he can bring to bear, and the remoteness of the location is not, obviously in our favor here.
Chris, thank you for your insight and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you.
To help us understand what it's like to be inside the Titan, we would like to talk to someone who has been there. Aaron Newman was a passenger on the submersible in 2021. He is also an investor in OceanGate. Aaron, take us inside. What is it like to physically be inside there?
Well, so I went down in 2021 in August and actually made the dive down and saw the stern and made it back. Now it is I like to say it's comfortable, but not luxurious, right? There's room to move around, but not you're not walking around or anything. But it's as it's been talked about, when you're at the bottom, it can get pretty chilly down there, and it's meant to be a vehicle that's designed to be as safe as possible. So it doesn't have seats or anything like that. It has a ledge at the end and room to move around, and it's designed to take people down in the most efficient way possible.
And on the trip that you took, what's the prep like? I mean, and obviously any vessel that you take of any kind, really, one has to prepare for things to go wrong. What were the preparations like, and was anything like this discussed?
Well, so certainly you have multiple days as you're making the journey there, right? So you're with the whole team of people where you have multiple days to cover protocols, talk about the design of the ship, talk about the history of the Titanic. So you're going through really an incredible learning process for multiple days before you would even get in the sub. So they would cover, the types of things like the drop weight systems. One of the most important pieces of the craft is the ability to drop those weights, which would allow you to gain back the kind of a positive buoyancy and float to the top. So that system is designed as robustly as possible. So there's multiple ways for that to drop, and it's designed to say, if things go wrong, it should float to the top as easily as possible. So hopefully we'll see that happen.
There have been some reports. We just had a report about issues that were raised about possible safety issues with the Titan. Was it safe as can be?
Absolutely. I mean, so I think to start with, those reports are on a different version of the Titan, not even on this version of the Titan. So it's a little misleading to throw those accusations at the current Titan version. But it is safety was the number one protocol. We covered everything from what would happen in a fire to what would happen if weights didn't drop. What are the backup systems to communicating in the worst case scenario. So there was a lot of training, and the fact is, the 5 people that are on board, these are not tourists. Right? These are experienced people who have explored in many, many places. These are the type of people that will be calm and collected, work together to figure out a way to do this. I mean, you take somebody like P.H. Nargeolet, probably the most experienced submarine expert in the world in terms of his ability to, he's been diving for 60 years. So there is no team better that would be able to handle the scenario than the people aboard this craft right now.
Given that you know the craft and the people on it, what was your reaction to news of underwater noises being detected? Did that mean anything special to you?
It's hard to tell from this. We're not on the search and rescue teams. Obviously we're going to cling on to every possible thing that we can get, but it's hard to tell what that noise could be. We are just hoping with every ounce that we can that this is somebody on the inside, hitting the side with a wrench or doing something to try to signal, and doing it in a way on a regular basis to make it more obvious that this is a human doing it, not a piece of the Titanic banging against something or an animal making some noise. So these are skilled people who would have that kind of presence to do that.
Aaron Newman, former passenger on the Titan submersible, thank you so much for being with us and helping us understand this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's begin here this morning with search crews who are still trying to locate the missing sub, believed to be thousands of feet beneath the surface of the ocean. Officials expect the deep-sea craft to run out of breathable oxygen at some point today. The sub went missing during an expedition to the Titanic's wreckage on Sunday. Our Roxana Saberi has the details.
Good morning. The submersible had an estimated 96 hours worth of oxygen, which is expected to run out this morning if it hasn't already. Rescuers have turned their focus to a remote area of the North Atlantic where underwater banging noises were detected. The Coast Guard says they don't know the source of those noises, but a Canadian airplane aiding in the search detected them every 30 minutes.
We're searching where the noises are, and that's all we can do at this point.
After 2 days of detecting noises underwater, the Coast Guard said Wednesday there's still hope for the 5 people on board OceanGate's missing submersible.
This is a search and rescue mission, 100%.
But both time and oxygen are running out.
In any search and rescue case, you look at all the different factors. How long we've been searching, what the survivability is, the oxygen on board. There is more than just one piece, and right now we're focusing on the search.
More rescue vessels are joining the effort, but searching for the small Titan in the near-freezing and pitch-black conditions on the ocean floor is challenging.
If I were a family member, I would remain hopeful, but people generally do not come back from the bottom of the ocean.
Captain David Marquet was the naval commander of the submarine USS Santa Fe.
Do you find it odd that there is no method of communication that the passengers could have had?
No, I find it ominous. I find that it's a signal the crew's incapacitated.
I don't think they had a pinger or anything, though. They were just communicating by text message.
Yeah, it's a commercial organization. They're trying to be really innovative and cutting edge. On our submarines, we would have more devices, but we have a nuclear submarine that costs $2 billion. So we have the luxury of having all those kind of things.
OceanGate has faced criticism for years.
This company decided to self-certify.
Engineer Bart Kemper was part of a marine technology group that expressed concerns in 2018.
It follows no code and follows no jurisdiction.
Kemper said the company agreed to be more transparent with passengers, but continued to operate as an experimental vessel, without what the group said is typical certification.
How rare is it for something like this to happen?
We have not lost a non-military submersible before. We've had failures, we've had fatalities, but we've never had this type of incident happen before.
More search vehicles have been joining the effort, including a French deep-diving robot that could help release a trapped vessel. But even if teams do find and free the Titan before time runs out, it would still be a challenge to bring it to the surface. Anne-Marie?
Roxana, thank you. So I want to bring in Art Trembanis. He's a professor of marine science and policy at the University of Delaware. And Professor, you have also actually worked with OceanGate in the past. You know some of the members on board the vessel. In what capacity did you work with the company? What was your experience like?
Yes, good morning, Anne-Marie. This is a somber day for us in the marine technology and ocean exploration community. These are friends and colleagues. 2 of the passengers, like myself, are members of the Explorers Club. Also, Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, is a friend. We've worked with him. We hosted the Cyclops submersible on our campus in 2015 and 2016. And I was going back through emails and seeing messages during lockdown when we were thinking of ideas for new expeditions in parts of the world. These are consummate, professionals. This is not, anybody on a sort of a reckless suicide mission, and we're reminded that this is the human dimension of this, and when we're holding on to the hope that perhaps there's still some miracle that can be pulled off today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the whole world is sort of watching this, and everyone wants there to be a positive outcome. That being said, there have been questions raised about the Titan and, whether or not it was safe and whether or not there are any sort of governing bodies that kind of keep track of this sort of kind of freelancing exploration, if you will. From what you know about the Titan, I mean, is it a safe vessel, a safe vehicle?
Well, I think certainly there are going to be lessons learned and a fullness of an investigation at some point down the road. Right now, the focus remains on the search and recovery aspect of it. This was an innovative new design utilizing carbon fiber for a hull with a titanium plug end cap. That was new and unique. It wasn't something that had been certified. That's a different approach than myself or others in the community might have taken, but it had gone through dives and things before. I was actually reminded of the sort of safety procedures that we went through on the dives we did with them. And even the smallest little thing could lead to a scrub. The weather conditions, some comms issue, or some other thing like that. I think what is most disturbing about this is how suddenly and completely the communication was lost. And I think what we're seeing is this full and complex and really unprecedented search effort, and it's amazing to see how many assets have been drawn in here so rapidly, and to see now that they have the remotely operated vehicles, the underwater robots.
Right.
Those are really the ones coming to the rescue.
Right, because they have the ability to get down sort of that deep into the ocean. So let's talk about this. At this point, it is still in the search part of the search and rescue. Should the Titan be located, though, how difficult would it be to bring it to the surface?
Tremendously. I mean, and this is unlike anything that would have otherwise ever been achieved in terms of once found a kind of rescue effort. In the 70s, there was a submersible that was recovered in 500 meters of water, about 1,500 feet of water off of the coast of Ireland. We're talking here more than almost 13,000 feet here at the Titanic site. So this would be a recovery that really is unmatched, except there have been some military recoveries of planes and other wreckage. Here we're hoping that we can find a sub hopefully still intact and with some hope of recovery.
Art, you said something when you were working with the company that if there was sort of any slight thing that was going wrong, they would scrub the attempt immediately, which makes me think that they did not have forewarning that something was about to go wrong. Is that what your kind of conclusion you're coming to as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially if you encounter anything early on in a dive, that's when you want to end the dive and then investigate that. The problem at these depths, where we're talking pressures of nearly 6,000 pounds per square inch, is that when something goes wrong, it goes cataclysmically wrong. And we've experienced that with even with underwater robots. Here, it's that human dimension, the fact that we have five souls on board this submersible that adds to it. And then the concerns are, if it is still intact, not only the potential of the dwindling or loss of air supply, but buildup of CO2, the incredible cold temperatures in these deep icy waters.
Well, we are all, hoping for the best out of this. Art Trembanis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Roxanne, it sounds like we may be getting an update right now. Our producers advise us that the Coast Guard says that they have found a debris field at this point.
In the area where they were searching.
So, of course, we're going to continue to bring all the very latest to our viewers on that. In the meantime, we want to ask you about the company, OceanGate. It's faced criticism from marine groups in the past. Tell us about those criticisms as well as any oversight that's in place for these types of excursions.
Yeah, there was a group of people in the industry who wrote a draft letter to OceanGate, and we spoke to one of those signatories yesterday, and he was saying the problem they had was not that it wasn't up to safety standards, but that OceanGate did not even try to get the submersible passed or approved by these international organizations that typically certify the safety of submersibles. Experts say submersibles, unlike boats, are largely unregulated, especially because they operate in international waters. There is something called the Passenger Vessel Safety Act that regulates submersibles carrying passengers, but that did not cover the Titan, according to experts, because the vessel doesn't fly an American flag or operate in American waters.
You know, Roxana, one of the things that has been mentioned over and over by experts, and I'm seeing this tweet where they're saying a debris field was discovered within the search area by an ROV near the Titanic. Experts within the Unified Command are evaluating the information for the next press briefing, and they provide a link. You know, the hope was or has been that if the vessel was still whole, basically, that there may be enough oxygen. But what have we heard about other concerns other than the oxygen running out from the experts?
We've heard about fears of hypothermia. It could be very cold. Do the people on board have any food? Did they have water? I mean, they might be able to last a few days without food, we're told, but water, it's very much more difficult. Oxygen, of course, as you mentioned, is the main concern, and it's not even clear if the oxygen tank they had was ruptured or not. If it was intact, you know, even though people might have had oxygen, they're still exhaling carbon dioxide, and that, we were told, is not easily absorbed by the vessel.
Well, Roxana, we'll let you go and continue your reporting. Thank you so much.
Well, if crews are able to find the missing submersible, and unfortunately this news does not put a lot of optimism back into the search, but there's also the dangerous mission of trying to retrieve it.
Joining us now is retired Navy Vice Admiral Robert Murrett. He is the Deputy Director of the Syracuse University Institute for Security Policy and Law. Robert, even if the sub is located today, and, you know, actually, I just kind of want to turn to this tweet that we're seeing from the Coast Guard that says a debris field was discovered within the search area by an ROV near the Titanic. Experts within the Unified Command are evaluating the information. What do you read from that?
Yeah, the first thing I would make is that there was a lot of debris on the ocean floor.
Yeah.
Having said that, for the Coast Guard to identify this as debris of interest, I guess, describe it as that, suggests that they may have some reason to believe it's associated to what's happening to the Titan. I don't know that yet, but I caution until we get some further word, because there's so much debris on the ocean floor in and around the Titanic that firm identification would have to be the next step. Just one other closing comment I'd make is that I think most people have been operating under the assumption and the hope that the Titan was still intact wherever it was, either on the ocean or some ocean depth. But yeah, this may not be the case, but we'll find out soon enough.
Appreciate that context as we're trying to sort through the very latest news on it. I want to also ask you about the Magellan remotely operated vehicle, because that is part of the resources that are being deployed today. Tell us about the Magellan, how it helps in the search.
Yeah, the Magellan is one of, I know there's at least 3 and probably more remotely operated vehicles, unmanned vehicles that can go down to extensive depth. And some of them are even able to do additional things when they're on the ocean floor, that is to recover material on the ocean floor, whether it's intact or not. But the family of remotely operated vehicles that are engaged in this operation, whether they're from the Canadian, the U.S., the French Navy, and the other participants, and all the Royal Navy as participants there, to speak to the effectiveness of the interagency team that the Coast Guard has put together, and all the nations and different organizations that have come together with, among other things, the Magellan ROV and other key assets that are on the scene.
And Robert, I mean, obviously, time is of the essence, not just, just because of the situation of oxygen, but I'm curious about crews also say that the deep sea medical personnel that has come in is focusing on how to rescue them, but that they're using equipment like a hyperbaric chamber that is supposed to arrive at the site today. Can you talk to us about the importance of having this kind of equipment? What are some of those other risks if they did find the vessel whole and they still survived? What's the importance of having this kind of critical equipment?
Yeah, that kind of equipment and those kind of personnel are essential to the interagency team that the Coast Guard is on scene there. The medical personnel, both in terms of monitoring the current situation, analysis, oxygen and carbon dioxide, likely elements inside the vehicle itself, but also if it is recovered intact, which we hope for, notwithstanding the debris field report we have now, but otherwise, the medical evaluation of the 5 souls that were in that submersible, it would be very important. And all members of these interagency teams that have come together for this are important, but among the more important ones are the medical personnel that need to be on scene.
All right, Robert Morat, thank you very much for helping give us context to the very latest developments that we're hearing, and as we all are trying to understand what has happened out there.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Jeriga Duncan. We're coming on the air with significant new information on the urgent and around-the-clock search for that missing submersible vessel in the Atlantic. I want to go straight to the news conference right now so we can get the latest information.
Everyone. Thank you for joining us today and over the past few days. This afternoon, Rear Admiral John Mauger will be providing an update on the most recent findings from ROV operations in search of the Titan submersible. He will provide a brief statement and provide the opportunity for questions after. Please limit your questions to 1 per outlet. Following the briefing, the Joint Information Center staff and I will be here to help you with any of your further needs. May I now please introduce Rear Admiral John Mauger.
This morning, an ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command, I offer my deepest condolences to the families. I can only imagine what this has been like for them, and I hope that this discovery provides some solace during this difficult time. Additionally, we've been in close contact with the British and French Consuls General to ensure that they are fully apprised and that their concerns are being addressed. The outpouring of support in this highly complex search operation has been robust and immensely appreciated. We are grateful for the rapid mobilization of experts on the undersea search and rescue, and we thank all of the agencies and personnel for their role in the response. We're also incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that's been provided. The ROVs will remain on scene and continue to gather information. Again, our most heartfelt condolences go out to the loved ones of the crew. We'll now take questions.
Rear Admiral, can you talk about the delay in reporting the vessel missing and what impact that had on the search?
This was a incredibly complex case, and we're still working to develop the details for the timeline involved with this casualty and the response. And so we'll provide that information.
The recovery of the body. James Matthews from Sky News. John, what other debris have you found? And have you found any trace of those who were on it?
So this is an incredibly complex operating environment on the seafloor, over 2 miles beneath the surface. And so the remote operating vehicle has been searching, and it is highly capable. And we've been able to classify parts of the pressure chamber for the Titan submersible. Let me refer to one of my undersea experts here, Mr. Paul Hankin, to talk about the nature of some of the debris.
Thank you, Admiral. So essentially, we found 5 different major pieces of debris that told us that it was the remains of the Titan. The initial thing we found was the nose cone, which was outside of the pressure hull. We then found a large debris field. Within that large debris field, we found the front end bell of the pressure hull. That was the first indication that there was a catastrophic event. Shortly thereafter, we found a second smaller debris field. Within that debris field, we found the other end of the pressure hull, the aft end bell, which was basically comprised of the totality of that pressure vessel. We continue to map the debris field, and as the Admiral said, we will do the best we can to fully map out what's down there.
Thanks, Paul.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
It's a very difficult question to ask, but it will be an important one for the families, of course. What are the prospects of recovering the bodies of the missing?
So the questions was related. I'm restating the question from the standpoint of sometimes it's hard to hear the question here. What are the prospects for recovering crew members? And so this is a incredibly unforgiving environment down there on the seafloor, and the debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. And so we'll continue to work and continue to search the area down there, but I don't have an answer for prospects at this time.
Admiral, it's Tom Costello of NBC News. Is there any suggestion at all that the sub itself collided with the wreckage of Titanic, or that instead it might have imploded above the wreckage and then rained down nearby?
So the question was, is there any question as to whether or not the sub collided with the Titanic or whether it imploded above and debris field created from that? So the location of the Titan submersible was in an area that was approximately 1,600 feet from the wreck of the Titanic. I have an expert here that is familiar with that area and can talk about the debris field and what the debris field indicates in terms of where the casualty may have occurred.
Rear Admiral, really quickly, can you tell me when that massive fleet will be called back?
The expert voice is coming up to answer the question.
Thank you, Admiral. So the question is, where does the wreck lie in relation to the Titanic? I didn't hear the Admiral's answer. I think 1,600 feet. Was that correct, Admiral?
Yep, you got it.
So that's off the bow of Titanic. It's in an area where there is not any debris of Titanic. It is a smooth bottom. To my knowledge and anything I've seen, there's no Titanic wreckage in that area. And again, 200 plus meters from the bow, and consistent with the location of last communication for an implosion in the water column. And the size of the debris field is consistent with that implosion in the water column.
Thanks.
Well, if I can ask a question, in terms of the timing here, you say that this was a catastrophic implosion. And I know it's early on, but is it your estimation that this happened right at the moment when they lost contact, an hour and 45 minutes after their descent?
So the question was about the timing of the catastrophic implosion. Right now, it is too early to tell with that. We know that as we've been prosecuting this search over the course of the last 72 hours and beyond, that we've had sonar buoys in the water nearly continuously and have not detected any catastrophic events when those sonar buoys have been in the water. So.
Can you describe what happens from here, sir, in the next days and weeks in terms of finding any more debris? What happens from here?
So we will, the question was what happens from here, what's the next phase? And so right now, again, our thoughts are with the families and making sure that they have an understanding as best as we can provide of what happened and begin to find some closure. In terms of the large process, we're going to continue to investigate the site of the debris field. And then I know that there's also a lot of questions about how, why, and when did this happen. And so, you know, those are questions that we will collect as much information as we can on now, while the governments are meeting and discussing, you know, what an investigation of this nature of a casualty might look like. This is something that happened, I'll just remind everybody, this is something that happened in a remote portion of the ocean with people from, you know, several different countries around the world. And so it is a complex case to work through, but I'm confident that those questions will begin to get answered.
Is there any suggestion that time factors, speed, anything could have prevented this or saved 5 people on board, or is this quite simply a catastrophic accident?
The question was there any suggestion that time factors may have played a role or a consideration in the casualty here? And so the debris field is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. Again, while we were prosecuting the search, we had listening devices in the water throughout and did not hear any signs of catastrophic failure from those. And so we're going to continue to investigate, or we're going to continue to document the information there and understand, based on all the information we have, the timeline.
And you were listening to a news conference there with Rear Admiral John Mauger with the U.S. Coast Guard, confirming that those 5 people on that submersible have perished, saying that it was, quote, a catastrophic implosion. Also mentioning that the why, how, when did all of this happen is still unclear, but wanted to make sure the families of those 5 people you see on your screen right there were notified before they held this news conference. I want to go to Roxana Saberi, who is in Boston, has been there for several days covering this. A lot of people hoping for a miracle, but obviously as the hours went on, knowing about this supply of oxygen that they had and the fact that this was not a submersible that had been approved or certified by any regulatory body, many people had feared the worst. Roxana?
Yeah, Jerika, as you mentioned, we just heard from the Coast Guard here in Boston. The Coast Guard has been overseeing and leading the search efforts, and Rear Admiral Mauger did say that a remote-operated vehicle that was deployed by the Canadian commercial vessel Horizon Arctic had found some debris
about 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the sea floor, and he confirmed that this was consistent with the loss of the pressure chamber. He said it shows a catastrophic implosion of the Titan submersible that has been missing since Sunday morning. You know, as you said, people have been holding on to hope that perhaps the 5 passengers on board were still alive. We had heard reports of banging noises that were that were emitted every 30 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday, but we had not heard any updates on that since Wednesday. So people were hoping that perhaps the passengers had survived, but now we are hearing that there were 5 pieces of debris that were found, and they were all belonging, they said, to the Titan submersible. So they are still investigating, trying to determine the timeline and what exactly happened. But again, they said everything points to a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. Jerika?
That's right. And those remote operated vehicles will remain on scene. I want to turn now to CBS News Sunday morning correspondent David Pogue. He joins us now. David, you went on board the Titan last year for a story about the sub and interviewed the CEO of OceanGate. Can you tell us your reaction to all of this? I mean, you were on this. I know you didn't get that far into it, but what an experience and a tragic ending.
It's a complicated brew of emotions. I haven't completely processed the fact that Stockton Rush, the CEO, the designer of the sub, the pilot of the sub, is gone. I spent 9 intense days with him last year on the Horizon Arctic, the very ship that has just discovered the wreckage. And P.H. Nargeolet, one of the most dived Titanic experts in the world, these were amazing guys. These were adventurers. You know, these are not like me, or possibly you. They thrive on risk and danger and exploration, and it's hard to think that they're just gone like that.
Yeah, we'll have much more, of course, later on. David Pogue, we thank you so much.
The Coast Guard says the 5 passengers on the Titanic submersible have died. Officials were able to locate a debris field Thursday and said the sub at some point imploded. It's not clear if their bodies can be recovered. Will Conan joins us now. He's president and CEO of Hydrospace Group, which specializes in engineering pressure vehicles for human capacity. Will, first, I'd like to get your reaction to Thursday's news.
Yeah, this has been a very sad day. We've been on pins and needles for days, and in hearing the Coast Guard announcement this morning, I've been doing this for a few hours now, trying to find a word that's just stronger than tragic. This is very tragic. This is the single biggest incident in our industry of submersibles since 1960. 60 years. This has never happened. We've had some fatalities, 4 fatalities in the 1970s, 2 or 3 different events, and here in a single event, we have this is more than all the rest combined. So it is very sad. They're all colleagues. I mean, this is a small community. The families are it's just devastating for the families. And look, there is a world of engineers and professionals that gathers. I'm chairman of the submersible committee within the Marine Technology Society, it's been around since 1968. We gather, we discuss, we review designs, regulations. We are close to this. We have safe regulations. And it is a battle between pushing the boundary of innovation and regulation. One is too slow, one is too fast, and finding the balance. It's tricky for any industry of finding that balance. And sadly, in the world of deep ocean, and this is very, very deep, even in our industry, this is very deep. There's only 10 vehicles that in the entire world that can go to this depth. And the
do you have a sense, Will, of do you have a theory about what might have happened, and Do you think there's any way to ever know?
Yeah, I think we will know. I mean, they will be picking up the pieces. We will see what the. I mean, one of the issues is seeing what the debris field is down there. We have like some amazing technology on the seafloor with the remotely operated vehicles. I mean, these are very dexterous machines that can take photographs, video, and pick up some of the parts. But look, when something like that happens, when they call it a catastrophic implosion, that just means an underwater explosion, just inwards, and that means something gave way. And if they have the front and the back pieces, as those were made out of titanium, it appears that the central part just gave way.
You were involved in, and help me understand this, you were involved in writing a letter in 2018 that raised some safety concerns with OceanGate. Were those concerns addressed? How much should we understand this past history in evaluating the safety of this trip and whether any gates were blown that should have been paid attention to before launching?
You know, it's a very fair question, and that adds to the tragedy, right? Because since the Roman times, human beings have figured out how to go to the deep ocean. We know how to do this. We go to 20,000 feet all the time, reliably, safely. We have a solution. It is a process. In 2018, here, our committee meets every year. It's our 20th anniversary this year. We're going to have a big celebration. I'm afraid that's going to be significantly dampened here. But in 2018, after the 3 days, many people, senior experts from around the world, were coming and say, "Hey, Will, what do we do? I think this is serious. I mean, do they know what they're doing, and do they know the risks they are taking?" And we figured, what are we going to do? Do we stay silent? Do we say something? And I drafted the letter. I passed it around my colleagues, and more than 24 people signed the letter. And it basically said, look, we suggest what was concerning is the strategy of bypassing the existing safety check procedure. We call that classification, and that's where a third-party outside agency comes in and reviews the design, reviews the drawings, inspects the construction and the testing to ensure everything is done properly. And you know, it's considered an imposition, but at the same time, it's a bit of, call it, engineering crowdsourcing, where you have a lot of people checking over and making sure you don't miss anything. And at 4,000 meters, at 12,000 feet, I say, you know, I call it Father Neptune here. Doesn't care much for puny humans. I mean, you make a small mistake and it gets costly.
And so, Will, help us understand the tension between, as you say, regulations and having a third party look at safety. Is it that imposes a cost? Is it that imposes restrictions that make it hard to have a commercial enterprise that is enjoyable for passengers? What is the tension that's at play?
Well, look, every industry has a tension between innovators and regulators, right? I mean, one moves too slow, the other one moves too fast. And that's one of the issues we have within the committee, to bring all the stakeholders at the table and say, okay, how do we do this careful dance between the two to find a happy medium? And I mean, all industries face the similar challenges. And we are very open to innovation. In fact, you know, we've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, there's been some amazing innovations in the submarine world in the last 20 years. The problem is, part of OceanGate's philosophy, their reaction to the letter was, well, no, I think we got it. I think we got it. Thank you anyway. I think we have a better and faster method. And, you know, I keep saying the same thing. We're parents, we have children. You know, what do you do when your teenagers get into really, really bad trouble, despite the biggest love and sincere advice you give them that go unheeded? And what are you left with? You're just left with empty, right? It's lose, lose, lose. And then you still feel, well, what more could we have done? it is so profoundly sad, and because this was preventable. To answer your question, yes, the putting it through this review process and classification, and I mean that's done by outside parties. These are international organizations that review oil platforms, super tankers, submarines, and I mean they are knowledgeable. It does take time and it does cost money. So there is a tendency to try and just get it done better and faster. And, the mistakes, we say in our industry, the rules we have, there's a lot of them. I mean, the rules are written in blood, right? I mean, why is it in there? Well, why do we know this? Well, because things happen. I mean, I think we will add some things to the books, but this is a very sad way of doing this, and I think this was preventable.
Indeed it is. Will, you've spoken very eloquently and humanly, and as a part of that community, we're sorry for your loss. Will Conan, President and CEO of Hydrospace Group, thank you so much for being with us and helping us understand this.
But let's begin here this morning with officials who now believe a catastrophic event destroyed the submersible that went missing during a visit to the wreck of the Titanic. And there are, sadly, tragically, no survivors. Crews found debris from the craft in the North Atlantic in the same area as the sunken ship. Roxana Saberi has been following the search from Boston. Roxana, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. This is clearly not the outcome that anyone was hoping for. The Coast Guard says it is investigating the debris sites to try to find out how and when the submersible imploded.
There was a catastrophic event.
The international rescue effort now turns to recovery.
The debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel.
After crews found 5 major pieces of debris from OceanGate's Titan submersible, about 1,600 feet from the Titanic shipwreck Thursday.
This is a incredibly unforgiving environment down there.
A naval official told CBS News the Navy detected a noise consistent with an implosion shortly after the Titan first lost contact on Sunday, and that the banging sounds a Canadian aircraft had detected on Tuesday and Wednesday were actually from other ships in the area.
OceanGate shouldn't have been doing what it was doing. I think that's pretty clear. I wish I had been more vocal about that, but I think I was unaware that they weren't certified because I wasn't really studying it.
James Cameron, director of the movie Titanic and an underwater explorer, has made more than 30 dives to the wreckage site.
It's not lost on me as somebody who's studied the meaning of Titanic, that it's about warnings that were ignored. That ship's lying at the bottom of the ocean, not because of the nature of its steel or the nature of its compartments, but just because of bad seamanship. The captain was warned. There were icebergs ahead. It was a moonless night, and he plowed ahead.
All 5 people on board the Titan are presumed dead. It's unclear if their bodies will ever be recovered.
There is a lot that was learned about the wreck of the Titanic that was in large part due to pH.
Matt Tulloch knew French naval veteran and explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet for 30 years.
How do you think Paul-Henri would have liked to be remembered?
He was just such a generous individual. He would like to be remembered as somebody who continued the story of Titanic.
In a statement, OceanGate said it is grieving deeply over this loss. The Coast Guard said while it will keep investigating the event, it's now starting to demobilize some of the search effort. Anne-Marie?
So a few questions for you, Roxana. What are the next steps in this investigation?
Well, the Coast Guard says it's trying to figure out how the implosion happened and when. They say they're going to analyze the debris that they've been finding on the ocean floor. They call it a complex case in a remote part of the ocean involving several different countries. And our partners at the BBC are reporting that investigators will be looking in particular for the site of the rupture. But that will be tough because the Titan broke into pieces. They're reporting that investigators are going to bring those pieces of debris up to the surface, analyze them under a microscope, and look for tears and other clues. Anne-Marie?
So the Navy reported hearing underwater sounds, which could have been this submersible imploding shortly after the Titan lost contact on Sunday. It happened at the same time. It lost contact, and the Navy heard what sounded like an implosion. what more do we know about this, and just why it took so long to confirm? You know, there were all these resources that sort of poured in to this search effort when it seems early on we would have known that it should be a rescue effort.
Yeah, so a Navy official has told CBS News that the Navy detected an acoustic anomaly consistent with an implosion shortly after the Titan lost contact. That was on Sunday. The official says that information was shared with the Coast Guard, which used it to narrow down the search area. We understand that the Coast Guard wanted to keep going with the search so that it could confirm that the Titan had indeed come to a catastrophic end, and that they got that confirmation when they found the debris through that remote operated vehicle yesterday morning. There were also those banging noises heard on Tuesday and Wednesday, and those had to be assessed. That naval officer told CBS News those were later found to be noises coming from other ships in the area.
And now that the worst case scenario has been confirmed, could there be repercussions for OceanGate? I know that, you know, the passengers had to sign a pretty extensive, sort of paperwork saying that they're aware of all the risks, including possible death. But I'm wondering if we are looking at lawsuits or other repercussions, even if it's not from, you know, the family members of the passengers.
Well, experts have said that despite those liability waivers that were signed by the passengers, they might not protect OceanGate from potential lawsuits. You know, OceanGate, as you know, has been coming under a lot of criticism for years, and a lot more now. There are international groups that certify submersibles by making sure that they comply with safety standards. And we've heard from these maritime experts this week who are linked to those groups, who said they warned the company back in 2018 that it needed to get certified, but that OceanGate did not go through that process, saying that it could inhibit innovation. Now, for context, Anne-Marie, there is something called the Passenger Vehicle Safety Act that does regulate submersibles carrying passengers, but experts say that did not cover the Titan because the vessel didn't fly an American flag or operate in American waters. But you can bet the industry will be facing a lot more scrutiny now.
Yeah, it's certainly. Roxana, thank you very much, and for good reason.
We are learning new details about warnings raised before the Titan submersible imploded back in June of last year. The U.S. Coast Guard says the sub carrying 5 people suffered a catastrophic loss of pressure, killing everyone on board. Officials released this animation yesterday showing the final moments and the crew's final messages before the vehicle imploded. You see on your screen there that final message, all good here. The Coast Guard also released this picture of the sub remains on the ocean floor. In a second day of hearings today, a former OceanGate official testified the company did not prioritize the vessel's safety. CBS News correspondent Roxana Saberi is following this for us from Chicago. So, Roxana, what are we learning from testimony today?
Well, Lindsay, David Lockridge, OceanGate's former director of marine operations, has been speaking today, and he was very critical. He said he repeatedly warned OceanGate, the owner, the maker of the Titan, of potential safety problems with the Titan years before its failed expedition in 2023, but he said his concerns were dismissed. He said he raised concerns about faulty and deficient equipment being used to build the hull and other parts of the Titan. He said, for example, that there were parts rigged up by CEO Stockton Rush in his garage. Now, Rush was one of the victims, and described how a PlayStation controller was used to operate the sub. This is part of what he had to say today.
Cost cutting, bad engineering decisions. I would say that's the two main things. The desire to get to the Titanic as quickly as they could to start making profit. I knew nothing about the financials side of things, but yeah, there was a big push to get this done.
Lockridge was fired in 2018 shortly after raising safety concerns. His testimony is significant in these hearings because he's known to be very experienced in deep sea operations. Lindsay?
I'm curious, Roxana, what you gathered from this animation that was released, and also what are you expecting in these hearings?
Yeah, Lindsay, well, the animation was interesting in that it showed some of the final communications and texts from the 5 passengers on Titan with the support ship, which was the Polar Prince that was on the surface of the water. And it showed that there were several problems with communication, with the support ship asking for clarification and more details on where the Titan was and what was happening. You mentioned one of the final texts that the passengers on board sent. Actually, the final one they sent was something about how far down they were. Or actually, I should clarify. Let me just make sure I've got the right notes. Yeah, at 10:42, they said dropped 2 weights, which would seem to indicate they're trying to lighten the load and maybe slow their speed as they were getting close to the ground, close to the Titanic. But then communications were lost, and that was like maybe half an hour after a previous text, which you read out saying all good here. So something happened in that half an hour. Investigators say they want to look into what caused the Titan to implode and try to prevent a similar accident from happening. We're expecting a total of 24 witnesses over the next 2 weeks, including other former employees of OceanGate and safety and marine experts. Lindsay.
Roxana Saberi, thank you.